What's up? This is EJ Stewart.
What if I drop 40 days, 40 nights?
One, you can't do it.
All you are your words. If there's anything you learned about me, I'm gonna keep it 100 with you.
Every morning, every night, for 40 days.
Going to be a long 40 days this year.
My skill shot will hold for your city for 40 days, 40 nights.
Rest in peace to all my ops.
For 40 days. If I can do that, then everything will be okay.
You're the guy who can't finish a sandwich. You think you can go 40 days? This isn't normal!
Oh, you're wrong, brother. I'm gonna go the distance.
Let's go!
Let's go is right. What's up? This is EJ Stewart. You are watching 40 Days, 40 Nights. We made it, folks. We made it to the end of the week. This is week number 2 of 40 Days, 40 Nights. Excited to be doing this show once again. Second show of the day. Of course, you guys know the rules at this point in time. 40 Days, 40 Nights. 2 live streams from your boy EJ Stewart talking all things sports and all things pop culture that he likes. So that could delve into hip-hop. That could delve into wrestling. Now you learned, because of my obsession with traders on Peacock, that could evolve into reality TV. Who knows where those interests may lie, but we talk sports, we talk pop culture, we have a lot of fun here. And it should be a really fun show to wrap up the week. So we got some details about some of the Bills coaching search, and an interesting name emerged as someone who got an interview today with the Buffalo Bills to become their next head coach. We'll talk about that and some other rather peculiar interview details about what's going on in Buffalo. That situation is beginning to become more and more like a clown show. Like I said earlier this week, I stand by those words. How they threw Sean McDermott under the bus and how they threw Keon Coleman under the bus, I thought was just completely ridiculous. And the ridiculousness is continuing this week with the Buffalo Bills. So we'll talk about that. The GOAT, Tom Brady, sounds off on one Fernando Mendoza. He is, of course, the Indiana QB. He's expected to be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. And he will likely be headed to the Las Vegas Raiders. And if you had an eagle eye, you were on the internet, or you were watching the game, you would have saw that Tom Brady and I believe also Mark Davis were both at this game. Tom Brady was definitely at the game. And he spoke with Colin Cowherd on the Herd, and he gave some initial comments on what he thought about seeing the prospective number 1 pick, Fernando Mendoza, in person. So we'll break that down. Also, some big implications for college football today, and some things will be staying the same. We talked about it earlier in the week. Would there be a change to the college football playoff formatting? It was all going to come down to whether or not the SEC and the Big Ten were able to come to terms on what that new formatting will look like for next year. They did not. So they did not come to terms. They did not agree at all. So there will be no changes to the format. So I'll talk about that and what that means for the future of college football. Coming up at 6:30. I mentioned I wanted to do the thing that I planned, and I think we're going to be able to have this happen. Kendall Stewart, my younger brother, who was here last week to talk Marvel news, also give us some NBA All-Star game picks. He will be back this week. This time we'll be talking some NFL. He'll give some picks for what's going to be going on for NFL Championship Sunday. You got 2 big games. I gave my picks earlier in the day. I'm picking the Rams and I'm picking the Patriots to go on to the Super Bowl. But there should be 2 really good games. Rams go to Seattle to face the Seahawks. Patriots going to Denver to face a shorthanded Broncos team that will not have their starting quarterback. So I'll get Kendall's thoughts. Kendall's extremely smart. Obviously, heard what he feels in terms of his brilliance when it comes to basketball. He's also extremely smart when it comes to football. This is someone who's worked on state championship high school football staffs, someone that has worked in the NFL. So this is someone you want to hear when it comes to what he thinks about the league. So I'm excited to hear what he has to say about the NFL. And, you know, with me and Kendall, he's my brother. We talk about all different kinds of things, so I'm sure the conversation will delve into various different other topics. I do plan to talk to him about some things happening in the Marvel DC world. We're getting some early reactions and reviews for Wonder Man, which is Disney Plus's next Marvel series. Yahya Abdul-Mateen is lead star in that role, so we'll get his thoughts on that. We also got a brand new look at Lobo, who is going to be, of course, a big character in DC's Supergirl coming up later this year. Jason Mamoa, who famously was Aquaman, is shifting gears into DC in this new DC world that James Gunn's creating. He's not going to be playing Lobo, the anti-hero, the super violent alien. We'll give our thoughts on what that look looks like, because we got a little bit of a sneak look at him during the first trailer. There was a new teaser that came out that showed essentially most of the same footage except for new footage of Lobo, and he's a lot more clear, it's a lot more him centered. So we'll break that down with my guy Kendall as well. So plenty to do, plenty of fun coming up here on 40 Days and 40 Nights. Again, this is your boy EJ Stewart, and like I said with every show, man, support us however you can. We're right now live on YouTube. New Generation Media is where you'll find us there. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like. Make sure you comment. Make sure we do whatever you gotta do to support us. We really appreciate that on YouTube. Also live on IG Live. We already got my guy Michael in the chat saying, "What's up, my dude? What's up, Mike? What's up?" Yep, I'm live here right now. Yep. So it's up to him. Yeah, of course, we're on IG Live. Action EJ, where you'll find me on IG Live. I also have a TikTok that's also Action EJ, so follow me on there. But we're live on IG Live. We're on Action EJ. We're live on YouTube, New Generation Media. And we're live on X, EJ_Stewart, where you can follow me on X, where we're streaming this show live. So, again, plenty to get to, and let's get the ball rolling here. And, again, my brother, Kendall Stewart, will join me at 6:30 to talk some football and talk some Marvel. So, that should be a lot of fun. So, let's begin with those Buffalo Bills, who, again, interviewed Philip Rivers today for the head coaching position. Philip Rivers, of course, came back into our lives in a way that nobody could have anticipated or nobody could have expected. He had been making babies and coaching high school kids. That was what he's been doing in retirement. Phil Rivers famously has like 10 kids, I think. He has been coaching high school football for the past few years. I think he's been doing well. I think this team is pretty good too. But he's been out of the limelight. He's not doing television. He wasn't doing anything in terms of any front-facing kind of stuff until he got randomly called out of retirement to try to save the Indianapolis Colts season after they lost their quarterback, Daniel Jones, for the season. And he came out of retirement after 5 years of not playing at, I believe, 44 years old, I think he was. And he went out there, and he actually looked okay. They didn't win any games. They didn't win with him out there. They lost 3 in a row. But he did go out there and give it his all. And he did have some pretty good games. He had a really good game on Monday Night Football and a loss to the 49ers. So he kind of became a little bit of a folk hero, and apparently that performance has made him a person people are thinking about in terms of, hey, maybe this guy can be a head coach. I'm not sure why, because he performed well as a quarterback at an old age. That meant that people think he can go straight from coaching high school to coaching the NFL. But that is the NFL at this point, and that is the state of the Buffalo Bills, because he was brought in to be interviewed by the Buffalo Bills for the head coaching job. And what did I tell you about the clown show? What did I tell you? I mean, I said when Sean McDermott got fired after watching that press conference from Brandon Beane and from the owner, Terry Pegula, where they threw Sean McDermott completely under the bus, blamed him and the quote-unquote coaching staff for all of the mistakes that people were blaming Brandon Beane for. They were saying that, oh, you keep saying that it was him that drafted, Brandon Beane that drafted this Keon Coleman that's a bust that we don't like anymore, that we're going to also throw completely under the bus. It was actually the coaching staff, and it was Brandon Beane being a good soldier, being a good teammate by following along with this terrible plan, and he got bullied by his own coaches to take this bust that we didn't want. Only then to look at a bunch of documentary footage shot by the Buffalo Bills, published by the Buffalo Bills, that shows Brandon Beane telling everyone under the sun how much he's in love with Keon Coleman. He even loved the fact that Keon Coleman ran a terrible 40 time because he'd make it easier to get him. And that unless they got 15 first-round picks, that they'd be drafting Keon Coleman with that pick in the second round. All these things were public documented, even though you had the owner go up to you and lie to our face and say, no, the GM actually didn't want him. He wanted somebody else, and he was just being a good soldier by going along with the coaching staff. So it was a really bizarre interview, bizarre press conference. The owner saying, oh, I saw a bunch of guys crying, and that's why I figured we could do better. That's why he fired Sean McDermott. But then he also kept lamenting about the bad call in terms of the Brandon Cooks controversial play. And when they asked him why they didn't win a championship this year, he said a bad call. So Pegula, a guy, is not someone who, again, has been very front-facing, not someone who's been talking a lot about personnel and all those things. He's kind of been a guy who's just, like I said on the last show when I talked about him, he's been trying to steal money from New Yorkers to get this stadium built with taxpayer money, and he's been trying to just focus on making sure the stadium gets built and it's all good. That's all he's really cared about. That's all he's really been involved with in terms of us hearing from him at all. It's about this dumb stadium that they're building. So to hear him now, I'm like, oh, okay, you also don't know what you're talking about. You also don't have a clue. I thought you were just the guy that cut the checks And maybe that's who you were before, but it seems like because of the pressure that's mounting in Buffalo, because it's the team that sees his championship window closing by the second, now he's feeling the need to express himself and feel the need to insert himself in these conversations about player personnel, football personnel. And it turns out the guy doesn't have a clue. And the guy is a terrible leader because he doesn't understand the attitude and the responsibility that comes with being a leader and not throwing your team under the bus and taking accountability when accountability is needed to be taken. He seems to have none of these skill sets. So now here we are. Why would I be surprised that you have the Buffalo Bills, a team that is, again, on the precipice of trying to win a Super Bowl, that thinks they're Super Bowl contenders, that just fired a highly successful head coach and is now thinking that the good idea is to turn to a guy who has never coached in the NFL before, a guy who's literally only coached high school football, a guy who we weren't even thinking about in terms of head coaching opportunities until literally a couple weeks ago or a month ago when he was playing in the NFL, which again doesn't necessarily make a through line from I coached in high school and then came back after 5 years at 45 years old to play in the NFL. That therefore means I should be a head coach in the NFL. I don't know what that through line is. It doesn't make any sense to me. But these are your new Buffalo Bills. I think that if you're looking at where the Bills are going to be for the next some odd years, look at the Cincinnati Bengals. Look at the Cincinnati Bengals. I think what you saw with the frustration Joe Burrow's had with the management of the team, with the ownership not really understanding exactly how to put this team headed in the right direction, how to maneuver as a team that now has enhanced expectations as a Super Bowl contender. We've seen that Mike Brown and that ownership and front office has been unable to support Joe Burrow in that way, in any way, in terms of that regard. And we've seen how much they've declined since. I think if you're a Bills fan, you're wondering, what does our future look like now that Sean McDermott is gone? Brandon Beane has been elevated inexplicably to president, even though he was a general manager that was being blamed for a lot of the shortcomings that didn't allow the team to get a Super Bowl. And now we have Terry Pagula, who's inserting himself in a much more aggressive way. I would say, look at the Cincinnati Bengals, look at what they look like right now. You see the mess that they look like right now? A team that's completely disjointed, a team that seems to have no leadership, a quarterback who looks extremely frustrated and starting to kind of wonder if he can do it with that team. That is your future, Buffalo Bills. That is your future. Because this is ridiculous. The fact I'm looking at this lower third being like, I actually had to write today, Philip Rivers is being interviewed for a head coaching job. And not like the Cardinals, which I saw their sad list today because it's apparently a job nobody wants. I saw Raheem Morris as a lead candidate for the Cardinals. And no disrespect to Raheem Morris, and I'll get to maybe Morris and a theme on that in a little second, but I was like, man, that guy got fired by the Falcons, and he making another NFL job. You get fired by the Bills, you get fired by some of these top teams. Okay, I could see you getting back into the game real quick, but you got fired by the Falcons playing in a really bad division. The whole thing didn't go quite well, and he may get back into the league, but the best he can do is the Cardinals. It shows you just how much they are not really in the mix when it comes to winning anything serious because their coaching candidates, along with the other guys they had in there, I don't have the exact list off the top of my head, but it was not a list that I was all excited about. If you're a Cardinal fan, God help you. I don't feel very good about where you guys are at this point in time. But this is completely unserious behavior. What we've seen from the Buffalo Bills for this entire week has been completely unserious. The firing of Sean McDermott, okay, that's serious because you are saying, okay, someone needs to be held accountable for the fact that we fell short and we can't keep doing this thing all over and over again. And okay, you say the coach. The coach had nothing to do, in my opinion, with that loss. I saw a quarterback to turn the ball over 4 times. I saw a wide receiver who couldn't catch the ball and in a play that could have sealed the game. It seemed like those guys were more the issue than the coaching staff. But okay, it's one of those games where somebody's got to get fired. And I totally would agree with that and understand that. So I don't have a problem necessarily with them firing Sean McDermott. Because like I said, when he got fired, it wasn't about him being fired that day. He got fired for what happened weeks and weeks, but years and years before that. And then now we learn maybe weeks before that because they had this contentious meeting where he essentially told the front office, both Pagula and Brandon Beane, that this team wasn't good enough to win a championship, or they didn't have the roster capable of winning a championship, but they didn't like that. So they made him the scapegoat. But he got fired for the 13 seconds game, for losing to Burrow and the Bengals years ago at home, for last year's postseason loss to the Chiefs. He got fired for past losses. He didn't get fired, in my opinion, for that loss. That loss was the culmination of all this stuff because there was nothing in that game to complain about with Sean McDermott how he screwed up. His quarterback lost in that game. His wide receiver lost in that game. So that's not on him. Nonetheless, okay, you fire him. That seems serious. But then you elevate the general manager, who has a lot of question marks with how he has built this team. They still haven't been able to build an elite defense. They let go of a wide receiver who was a star player who's now making an impact in New England, and they have replaced him with nobody. And you have a superstar quarterback who, in theory, you want to maximize his abilities, maximize his potential. So you elevate that guy, and then you hold this press conference where you're saying that you basically hold no accountability for what happened, and a lot of the issues that you guys are complaining about was on the head coach. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's a completely ridiculous situation. So it's not surprising that Phillip Rivers will be interviewed for this job. I think the chances of him getting this job are almost zero, which is why this is also so silly, because I'm like, you're not hiring Phillip Rivers for this job. Because if you do, it would be one of the most ridiculous and bizarre hires in the history of the NFL. But, okay, you're doing the interview and you say, hey, if he wows me, then who knows. But nonetheless, you're not hiring him. So why is it that someone like Phillip Rivers gets elevated to this positioning? And I think there's a lot of frustration from folks, and I think that is totally fair when you talk about opportunities in the NFL and how much these things are like gold. Like, there's only 32 of these guys in the world that are head coaches in the NFL. It's an extremely tough job, and it's an extremely tough job to hold on to. And it is a slap in the face to a lot of hard-working guys who have been slaving away, for lack of a better term, in the NFL, bouncing around from team to team, being assistants for a bunch of different coaches, learning what it takes to run an NFL system. It just sucks that those men and women, and a lot of them, when I think about guys not getting opportunities, and I think about Brian Flores and his lawsuit, a lot of POC coaches as well, being passed up for a guy who went out there and had a 3-week stretch where he went 0-3, and then now people think he could be a head coach. It's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. We're entering a coaching cycle where we may not have a black coach get hired at all. We'll see what happens in Arizona. That looks like our best shot at a black coach getting hired. And now you got Phillip Rivers coming off of the couch after playing a couple weeks of football and coaching high school. Now that is a real, qualification for him to be an NFL head coach. Get out of here. And I also don't want to hear this thing about, well, he's been a quarterback and therefore he's run offenses and he knows things, and that's why that's a qualification to be a head coach. That's nonsense. How many guys have we seen play quarterback in the NFL deep into their careers, and they don't get head coaching jobs? And in fact, Josh McCown, who's been kind of in and around coaching circles for a while, like when he was with the Eagles, he retired, and then I think he might have got a head coaching interview, I believe, with the Texans, and even that we frowned upon and said this is utterly ridiculous. How are you hiring a guy who basically it was just playing? I can say, just because of, we'll have Kendall on the show and maybe he'll have a good perspective on this. With the Eagles, even though he was a backup quarterback, he was almost like a coach. Like, he was like the Udonis Haslam role on the Philadelphia Eagles that season. So they didn't quite view him as just like a normal player going to the NFL, but it still was a slap in the face. To take a guy that was a player and say, okay, now you could be a head coach. And then here, Phillip Rivers, yes, he's been coaching, but high school football, like, are we actually serious right now? Like, we think that means he knows how to manage an NFL locker room, that he knows the ins and outs of the preparation needed to run an actual full NFL team? Because, again, when it's not talking about a guy only doing offense, there's all these different responsibilities that go with being an NFL head coach. And there are plenty of men and women, again, in this field, in this position, that are busting their ass just to get an opportunity, just to get an interview, just to get in front of an owner to show and tell why they deserve a chance, and just to get that experience of being in those positions. Because how many people, again, they may not get a job, but just getting in that interview positioning, preparing for the interview, preparing to talk to a team, touring a facility, thinking about what you want to be as a head coach, thinking about these guys that have given their lives to this, and then you got to sit there and watch Phillip Rivers, who's getting a ceremonial interview because he had a 3-week stretch with the freaking Indianapolis Colts, not even the team that he played for. Like, this isn't like the Colts were interviewing him. That I can maybe understand a little bit, but he has no connection to the Bills. Why the hell is he getting interviewed by the Buffalo Bills? It's utterly ridiculous, man. And then again, we tend to only see these kind of bizarre, jumping the line kind of things happen for the Phillip Rivers and the Jeff Saturdays of the world. It doesn't You don't have Cam Newton being elevated to potentially getting an NFL head coaching job. You don't have Michael Vick being elevated to getting an NFL head coaching job. Those guys, like a Dion, like a Vick, they have to go to the HBCU if they want to start their NFL career. Deshaun Jackson, he's got to go to an HBCU. He's actually done a really good job at Delaware State. He's got to go to the HBCU to get an opportunity. Phil Rivers can coach high school and play for 3 weeks, and now he's getting a job with one of the most prestigious jobs in the NFL right now to coach Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills. I mean, if you don't think that there's not obviously something wrong with that picture, I don't know what to tell you. But it's whack. It's whack. It's lame, and it's a total slap in the face to a lot of other former athletes who want to get into coaching but are being told, well, you gotta pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You're Deion Sanders. You got to start in high school. Again, if you're if you're Deshaun Jackson or Michael Vick, you got to start at HBCU. And then if Phil Rivers can coach high school ball with his kids and then play a couple weeks in the NFL, then he's getting a chance to potentially coach Josh Allen. That just does not look right. It does not make sense. And there's no way you can tell me that it does. It's completely ridiculous. It's something that I don't know how it gets fixed. I don't think it really can or does get fixed. But I mean, I looked at this and I rolled my eyes. I rolled my eyes just from that standpoint, just from like a pure fairness standpoint of everybody getting a fair shake and thinking about how golden these opportunities are. And this opportunity is essentially being wasted on a guy who is skipping the line. It's just a reality. He's not someone who's been part of NFL head coaching circles. He's not been someone who's been training for this job. He's being elevated completely out of nowhere, in part because of a stint playing, which is just, it's never been a prerequisite for somebody getting an NFL head coaching job because, you played well for a couple weeks. Therefore, let's see what you can do as an NFL head coach. I mean, come on. It's complete nonsense. It's completely ridiculous. But again, it's par for the course where the Bills are right now. I mean, the Bills, again, if you're an AFC rival, if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, if you're the Baltimore Ravens, if you're the New England Patriots, if you're the Denver Broncos, I would be like Texans. I would be looking at the Buffalo Bills and being like, oh, man, they actually don't know what's going on over there. The adult that was there left the room, and now all they have are children who are now who now have the mercy of the rest of the community and Josh Allen, because who knows what the hell these guys are going to do. It's a joke. It's a complete other joke. And speaking on that point real quick, another thing we learned in these Bills coaching situation is that Josh Allen is apparently also in the interviews. I mean, again, you want to talk about lack of leadership, lack of direction. Like, I'm not saying that Josh Allen, he's a superstar MVP player. Should he have a say in who the head coach is? Yes. I want him to have a good relationship with the head coach. I want him to play for a guy that he wants to play for. What I do not want is him in an actual freaking interview where a person is coming into an interview and now they're, instead of maybe giving their honest assessments about the team, honest assessments about Josh Allen, what they feel they need to do to get them to become a better team, now they may be in a position where they're actually going to be sitting there and saying, well, let me say the right thing because Josh Allen's in the room. Well, let me make sure I don't say anything negative because Josh Allen may feel a certain way. What are we talking about here? I mean, this is madness to me. This is complete, utter madness that's happening in Buffalo. Since I've been watching NFL football, I don't think a team in terms of like the status that I hold them to. Because, I mean, I'm a Jets fan, so they're a rival, but in terms of their ability to dominate the AFC East rather for the last 5-6 years, like, you had no choice but to respect the Buffalo Bills. They've been, before this year, the Jets actually had some success against them in head-to-head matchups. But in the last 2 years, they've been curb-stomping the Jets, and they've dominated the division. So all you can do is look at that and say, okay, this is a team that is legit. They're extremely well-run. They're the kind of organization that you want to become. So all you have to do is give respect. Can't remember the last time I've seen an organization that I looked at and said, they have plummeted down the rankings when it comes to how I view them as an organization. Because again, I'm starting to kind of wonder if Sean McDermott was holding that thing together in a way that we did not expect. That's what it looks like. Because now we have the owner making the decision that the quarterback should be in coaching interviews when you actually should be using those interviews to gather intel and information about your team, which means you want that coach to be honest about Josh Allen. You want that coach to be honest about the overall aspect of the team without it being influenced by the star player, the MVP, sitting right there in the room. I mean, do you not trust Brandon? You just elevated Brandon Beane to president. You don't trust him to do his job? You just said that he's not to blame for anything else that's happening in Buffalo. But yeah, he needs Josh Allen to hold his hand in a freaking job interview? Are we serious? I mean, come on, man. I mean, the Buffalo Bills situation is dire as far as I'm concerned. They're an aging team that's going to have to overturn the roster with a president of best football operations now that I don't think has the confidence of many of the people in that community. They lost a head coach who was maligned, but is now starting to look like the smartest guy in the room. And now they're led by an owner who seems like a madman. I don't know where you can spin this for a positive thing. You have Josh Allen. That's the one positive that you got. But outside of that, I got nothing for you. I saw Jim Rome. Shout out to Jim Rome. He's one of my inspirations for being in this career. I didn't watch the clip, but I saw the tweet, which usually is like a summary of his clip. And he's right. He said, the good news, if you get to coach the Bills, you get to, coach Josh Allen. The bad news is if things go out wrong, Brandon Beane will not take the blame, and you will be driven over by a truck or by a bus, rather. You'll be thrown right under the bus. Like that is the reality of what you're facing if you end up having to be the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, and apparently that could potentially be Philip Rivers' future. Again, a guy who was not in our NFL thing at all. We were thinking about Hall of Fame for this guy. That's what we were thinking about in terms of Philip Rivers. Maybe can he get into the Hall of Fame this year? Like, this is going to be the year for him. And he played, which was shocking. But then now we're talking about him being a head coach of a team that's, arguably a top 5, top 10 team with the MVP quarterback because he coached some high school ball and he played okay in 3 games at the end of a season. This is what we're doing? Buffalo, really? I mean, that's very, very odd to me, man. All right, so let's get it going, man. I told you that my guy Kendall Stewart would join me at 6:30, and he is here 6:30 sharp. So my guy Kendall Stewart, of course, he is the co-host with myself and Shamari Stewart, who will get on the show as well at some point too for New Generation Hero Talk. That is our Marvel and DC podcast that we talk all Marvel and DC news, and I'll ask Kendall about some Marvel and DC stuff today. He also is a co-host with my brother, Shamari Stewart. He's also the co-host of Imperial Broadcast, which is our Star Wars podcast. So he does phenomenal stuff there. He's also my co-host when we do sports talk. If you're watching on YouTube and you've subscribed to our channel, which I suggest you do, New Generation Media, if you've gone through our library, you'll see a lot of the sports content regarding NBA draft stuff has been me and Kendall. So he's been my ride or die when it comes to that as well. So Kendall, smart dude, he knows the NFL, and this is exactly the guy you want to hear from as we enter Championship Sunday. So Kendall Stewart joins me now live from the dungeon. Kendall, what's happening, boy?
Oh man, glad to be here. Glad to be back. Yeah, I was just taking in with everybody else your as you called it yesterday, the Lisa Stewart rant on on the Phillip Rivers Buffalo Bills situation. Does it not feel like the Buffalo Bills have a little bit of like the Milwaukee Bucks feel to them? Like, I don't want to go as far as say they're the Cleveland Cavs, like LeBron era Cavs. I'm not going to go that far, but it feels like, man, like you said, Josh Allen and Sean McDermott are kind of holding this thing on, kind of might have been holding this thing on by a string.
Yeah.
And again, they're seemingly like looking at their coaching search versus what the Baltimore Ravens have had to do in basically pretty much the exact same situation.
Yep.
And, we saw Steve Biscotti go up there and he gave a equally bizarre press conference.
It was.
But his message was Lamar Jackson has zero input. We'll listen to it, but he has zero input
right, yeah.
on the coaching search. And what we heard behind the scenes was, Lamar Jackson and the offensive guys, like they were pushing for Cliff Kingsbury maybe to be either the coach or the offensive coordinator.
Yep.
And, of course, they go right into the family and hire Jesse Minter, right?
Yeah.
And, we'll see how that works out. But they wouldn't just go out and just interview a bunch of offensive, quarterback coach guys, which is clearly what the Bills are doing. Every single guy I've named, besides Anthony Weaver and I guess Anthony Lynn, which you could probably figure out the common denominator between those two guys. But besides those two guys, everybody else has been a quarterback-centric guy. So it seems like that's the direction that the Bills are going in this scenario. Which, again, I'm not saying, don't hire somebody that could fit well with your quarterback, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
It will be, and it's funny because you mentioned again the Bills looking at only offensive guys. It's peculiar, but again, it suggests that they're blaming Sean McDermott's defense for them not getting the job done. And the one thing I will say, and I've heard Maggie Gray say this, and I've heard Bills fans say this, is that as good a head coach as maybe Sean McDermott has been in terms of wins and losses, the Bills have never built a great defense. Like, not a great defense, like an all-time defense or an elite defense. They've been good. They've been, top 10, which is good, but not like top 3, top 2, not a defense that actually scares people. Which I have said. I've also said that same thing, that as much as you want me to love Sean McDermott, we actually haven't seen them build a great defense. The counter to that, which I also said earlier this week, was that Brandon Beane, where are the great players that he's given him? I mean, they've drafted all these first-round pick defensive guys. He kept blaming him about the Keon Coleman, saying, "Oh, well, that was all the coaching staff." Well, did Sean McDermott tell him to draft Kyrie Elam too? I mean, what about these first-round pick guys on defense that they've got? At least Harrison, obviously, Rousseau's been a good player, but he hasn't been a superstar. And then Harrison really couldn't get on the field this year because of injuries. Like, where are these great defensive players that he has drafted, that he has signed or brought in? Von Miller, how much of a disaster was that? Right? Like, so Sean McDermott also may have been keeping that defense afloat too. He may have been in a situation where it was like, this defense really should be top 20, not top 10. But because he's a good defensive coach, they've been solid on that end. And I watched them play on Sunday or Saturday, whenever they played. And I don't know how you blame Sean McDermott for that game. Josh Allen put the team in bad situations with his turnovers. Sean McDermott's defense essentially shut out the Broncos for the second half, except for the last drive that actually ended up sending the game in overtime. But before that, the Broncos didn't score any points. At one point, I think Bo Nix was like 2 for 8 in the second half. They threw for 13 yards. I mean, so we're running to, we got to find an offensive guy to spice up this offense because McDermott isn't an offensive coach. Okay, and then, but also you're blaming him for the defense. Like, I don't know what their strategy is. It doesn't seem like they know what their strategy is. It just seemed like their thing was fire this guy, blame him for everything, and then we'll figure out the rest. So again, if you're a Bills fan, I think the Bucs analogy was a good one. It kind of feels like when they fired Bud. Like, Bud got fired, even though he was a highly successful guy. He won a championship, so he was even a little different. But he got fired, and he kind of was similar. Like, he wasn't great with game management. He did some weird stuff. He kind of wondered, okay, they win a lot of games, but it's just Giannis. And they fired Bud, and we thought, all right, well, Bud's gone. Now they can actually really become the team we think the Bucs should be. And then they hired Adrian Griffin, and then they fired that guy in like 2 months. And now they have Doc Rivers. Hired a guy with no head coaching experience. They were winning some games, but like the players didn't like him, so they fired him in 2 months. And then they brought in Doc Rivers, and now they can't wait to fire Doc Rivers. So I agree. I think that the Bucs analogy was a good one in terms of where this team is at.
And the trend that I'm noticing with the NFL head coaching hiring, there's a lot of trends, obviously, but one of the trends that I think we're seeing play out, especially when you talk about this Phillip Rivers situation, and you brought up Josh McCown. I was going to bring up Josh McCown before you even brought up Josh McCown. Yeah, because it's a great example. This is a guy who interviewed, obviously you mentioned played with the Philadelphia Eagles. Spent that last season, basically getting ready to be a coach and studying, was always in the film room, the video room, all these different things, preparing himself for not just, playing if he had to, but also knowing that his future was in coaching. And when, he got interviewed for the Houston Texans job, this was after, I'm forgetting his name. It wasn't Lovey. It was the guy before Lovey.
David Culley.
Yeah, David Culley.
I actually mentioned him earlier this week too. That's why I remember his name.
Yes, I know, I totally forgot about that guy. But when David Culley got the job, they were talking about interviewing. This was Bill O'Brien had gotten fired. They interviewed Josh McCown off the street, having just played in the NFL, and with no coaching experience. And obviously that was at the height of the conversation of the Rooney Rule, and it felt obviously problematic that Josh McCown in all circles, it felt like he was going to get the job, and then there was such a public outcry about how ridiculous that would look at that time in that moment, and then they end up giving it to David Culley, who we kind of knew, like, man, like if this doesn't go well, this guy's not going to get more, maybe 1 year, maybe 2.
Yeah, this was the guy's only chance. This was his only chance to ever become an NFL head coach.
Yeah, I mean,
like he was getting hired by getting one hired by anybody else under any other circumstance.
And he goes, I believe Josh McCown then goes and coaches high school football, if I'm not mistaken. I think he might have coached Drake May that year with his son. But David Culley gets fired. The Houston Texans bring him in again to interview. And they end up hiring Lovie Smith, if I'm not mistaken. It was either Lovie or D'Amico Ryans, I forget. But regardless, for the second time in a row, he interviews, same kind of problems, like, I don't know if this is going to work out. And they go with a different head coach. And he has now since gotten actual real NFL coaching experience. He's been the quarterback coach of the Vikings now for the last 3 years, I want to say 2-3 years. And it's been crickets on the Josh McCown conversation in terms of his ability to get an interview. And I think the trend that I guess I'm trying to point out is that I feel like new is in. Like, I think you're almost better off. Like, the mystery, the unknown is more exciting to these GMs and these owners in many ways than the proven commodity. And I look at a guy like Josh McCown, who was seemingly a hotter head coaching candidate when he never coached in the NFL. And, now that he's gotten real tangible experience, and we could say, oh, this year didn't go great with J.J. McCarthy, but he also coached Sam Darnold last year as a quarterback coach and did an excellent job. Yeah. And, again, it's not just him. I mean, again, there's a lot of coaches, like you mentioned, around the league that are probably looking. I mean,
hey, listen, Jeff Saturday got to actually be an NFL head coach. Like, you would think, okay, like, it didn't go well, but, like, okay, that was his first go-around. Like, maybe he'll get at least an interview somewhere, or maybe an interview like an offensive line coach or something. And he hasn't gotten any looks since that thing happened. So, that I think it's a fair point, that whole thing of, like, well, the new, the mystery, it shows that we're being bold and tells our fans we're being bold, being different. And once you got that shine off you, they don't care about you anymore.
Look, my guy, Grant Udinski, who's the offensive coordinator of the Jaguars, he's interviewing for this Bills job, which, if you would have told me a couple years ago, I would have said no. I mean, no way. But he's in. I mean, I think he's going to get the Cleveland Brown job, and I mean, he's if he gets it, he's going to be the youngest head coach in NFL history. This is a guy that 2 years ago was the assistant quarterbacks coach of the Minnesota Vikings. Just going back 3 years ago was the assistant to the head coach, which is pretty much the lowest on the totem pole.
Yeah, it's like the Dwight Schrute, the assistant to the regional manager.
Assistant to the regional manager. And look, Grant did an excellent job of, obviously the work he's actually done, but then also like the moves he's made in his career. I mean, going to Jacksonville was an excellent move. But it only, kind of highlights that, like, it's you're almost. I would say if I was him, I would jump on that opportunity if you can now. Because,
definitely.
I mean, who knows what happens in Jacksonville in 2 years, and you wind up, back into the OC cycle. So, yeah, I mean, to me, I think, it's a really weird situation that we're in the NFL head coaching cycles. I mean, last year, I think we maligned, the Cowboys for hiring Brian Schottenheimer, and honestly, that we need to go back to that. We need to go back to hiring the guys who've been coordinators for 20 years and have actually cut their teeth, in doing the job. I mean, and it wasn't the train wreck that maybe we thought it would be based off of, like, kind of the ridiculousness of nobody wants to interview Brian Schottenheimer except the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I kept saying, I think you have to say that was a pretty good hire so far. I mean, was it perfect? No, but I mean, they had a terrible defense. That was Jerry's fault. He traded Pike Parsons, and he wanted Eberflus there. So that's not on Schottenheimer, who coached one of the best offenses in the NFL this year. A couple of game management issues, but I don't think anything crazy. I think that it seemed like he also showed a leadership of men aspect to him that I think people didn't think he had. Especially given some of the stuff that a lot of people in Seattle and New York had said about him in terms of being a leader and not having those qualities. It seemed like whatever he didn't have, he's learned over the years. So he looks like, again, there's other issues in Dallas, but it doesn't look like he's one of them. But that's a guy who's a lifer, right? That's a guy who has learned. That guy who was seen as a hot rising guy and then kind of plummeted because of just the failures and some of the shortcomings people saw from his coaching style and his career. And then he gets his opportunity kind of out of nowhere, but at least now the guy has been around for a while and he kind of knows the ropes. So, again, now we're talking Phillip Rivers to coach potentially a team that says that they're trying to get for a Super Bowl. I don't. Again, that's crazy to me.
When you talk about the McCown situation, again, that was the Houston Texans when they were getting ready to move off of Deshaun Watson. It was probably the worst job in the league, considered the worst job in the league at the time. I mentioned Grant Udinski, might be getting the Cleveland Brown job. That's probably the worst job in the league right now, all things considered.
Yeah.
The Buffalo Bills is, like you said, I mean, you would think you'd have your pick of the litter. I mean, we're talking, 5 jobs. You could probably count on one hand the amount of jobs that are more attractive as a head coaching destination. Baltimore might have been one of them.
Yeah, just rank the top 5 quarterbacks, and those are the top 5 jobs. Maybe except for maybe Cincinnati. Maybe take them out because they're Cincinnati. If you think Burrow's the top 5 quarterback, besides them, just rank the top 5 quarterbacks. But I don't think Hurts the top 5 quarterback. But yeah, it's one maybe throw Philly back.
Yeah, Philly may be the only one.
Yeah, I mean, basically those are the jobs that everybody wants because you don't have to solve a quarterback problem, that you have a guy at that position. So the fact that this is a team that you think should be able to get anybody, like we talked about earlier today, how the Steelers, who they're maybe considering Mario Cristobal, which is weird to me, but to me it shows that they're the Steelers. They feel like they can get anybody. They can say, you know what, we'll just get whoever we think is the most successful college coach right now, and a guy who's not signed long term. Oh, Mario Cristobal, all right, we'll go get that guy. The fact that the Bills feel like they should actually give a real say to a high school coach who's never coached in the NFL before just because he played a good 3 weeks in the NFL at age 44, 45, I'm dumbfounded by that. I'm completely dumbfounded by that. It's really crazy, man. Kendall Stewart joins us here on 40 Days and 40 Nights. I think we can lock in, Kendall, that you'll be with us every Friday. Is this going to be the deal?
Yeah, I have no obligations, currently. So yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah, so Kendall will be rocking with us every Friday, so that'll be a lot of fun. Friday nights with Kendall and your boy EJ Stewart here. And I wanted to ask Kendall about Super Bowl, the Super Bowl preview we have coming up, essentially with Championship Sunday happening here. So we got our Final Four set. We're going to talk about the AFC, NFC showdowns we got here. Let's begin talking about what's going on with the AFC Championship game. So yeah, Jarrett Stidham, who's going to be starting for the Denver Broncos. Of course, they're hosting the New England Patriots. What I said earlier this morning, and I picked the Patriots, but I think this is going to be a close game. I think it'll be something like a touchdown kind of game. What I expect to see from Sean Payton is they're going to try to steal some points in places. Sean Payton is someone who is known to use trick plays, known to be aggressive in certain spots. He can't say, I'm going to drop back Jarrett Stidham 40 times in this game, and that's how we're going to win. He knows that's not how they're going to win the game. And he knows they're not going to win the game, I think, by saying we're going to go on 15, 16 play drives and just move the ball up and down the field. I think, for me, I'm expecting some trick plays. I'm expecting maybe an onside kick here or there. I think there's going to be some weird things that are going to happen where they're going to try to catch the Patriots off guard. And I think for the Patriots, the key is to try to limit those explosive plays because the Broncos are going to try to find them in kind of unconventional ways. Do you see that as possibly being a story of this game as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're looking at that New England team, I mean, we saw the way they got after Stroud last week and really flummoxed him. They've got to be licking their chops knowing that they're going up against Jarrett Stidham. Whether or not, like, the Stidham situation is weird, and I mean, I'm guessing Josh McDaniels, coached Jarrett Stidham at some point in New England, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that, but so they may have some pretty good familiarity with his tendencies and things of that nature. But like, the question for them is just the mystery of like what version of Jarrett Stidham are you getting? I mean, this guy hasn't played in a while, and I like when you look at Denver. It depends, honestly, what you think of Bo Nix, but to me, what they've gotten out of Bo Nix all season is an indication that this is not a team that is quarterback driven. I don't want to say quarterback driven as like all. I don't want to use all the buzzwords. He's a game manager, or he's being carried. But this is a team that has a system in place that allows someone like Bo Nix to be effective. And Jarrett Stidham's been in the system now for 2 years, and this is a guy that competed strongly with Zach Wilson for to land the backup job all of last season, and was handpicked by Sean Payton as the guy that they want to hold that job going into this season. And so this is a guy that obviously they have a lot of value in. But it's going to be this is a big spot obviously for him to walk into.
Well, Kendall's frozen there. I'm not sure if we lost Kendall there. Kendall, you still there?
Like you said,
I'm
New
sorry.
England's offense.
Sorry, Kendall, you froze there one time. Can you say that one more time?
Yes. I mean, New England's offense, is in a situation where they've got to play better than I think they did even last week.
Yeah,
I think they got a little, and as great as Houston's defense is, Denver's defense, in some ways might be better, or at least is on a similar level. And so, I tend to agree this is not going to be if it's a shootout, then New England might run away with it, but I think this is a low scoring affair.
Yeah, I totally agree. I said like a 23-17 type game. Like, I think the Broncos get steal a touchdown on a trick play, on a kick return or something weird. But again, I think you make a good point, and I've mentioned it earlier. Like, to me, Drake May essentially had 2 scrimmage games, the first 2 playoff games. He played against 2 offenses that were so ill-equipped to move the ball in any realistic way that there was no threat that they would lose those games unless he played like C.J. Stroud or was getting sacked like Justin Herbert. That was the only chance they had to lose those games. If he just stood up upright and just made some plays, that they were going to win those games. And there is a benefit to a quarterback in terms of getting playoff experience where you can learn those things without having to take a loss. Like, there's so many young quarterbacks when they get these first opportunities where, it's just different, right? Like, we always say, oh, they look good in the regular season, but playoff time is very different. It's different speed, different energy. The coaching's much better, the scouting's much better, and it's just a different beast. And a lot of times, guys who maybe have great regular seasons in their first postseasons, they struggle. And usually maybe it's a 1-and-done or maybe a 2-and-done. But Drake May is fortunate enough that because he's played against, again, quarterbacks that were playing much worse, or offensive lines that were playing much worse in terms of the Chargers. I keep calling them San Diego, the LA Chargers. Like, it's he essentially got to make a bunch of mistakes. He got to struggle at times. I thought he really struggled in that first half. I thought against the Chargers in the first game, and then I thought he was very uneven in the second game. He started to make some really good throws down the stretch of that Texans game, but for I think a long stretch of that game, he was really struggling with them as well. He keeps fumbling the football. He's not holding on to the ball, taking the ball at all in these 2 games. So I mean, usually quarterbacks don't survive those kind of performances. Do you feel like he can? Do you think he can get away with that again? That's basically what I'm asking. Like, I think he might be able to because they're playing Jarrett Stidham. I saw someone make the case that this might be the easiest road to a Super Bowl in history. Maybe it was Cam Newton. I think Cam Newton may have said that.
Yeah, I saw Cam.
Yeah. I mean, you listen. You get a Chargers team that can't protect their quarterback, and C.J. Stroud is throwing 4 picks and a half. You just walk to the conference title game, and now you gotta get to play backup quarterback. Do you think that they need a better version of Drake May to win this game?
I mean, a major difference is going to be on the road, right? And Denver is a tough environment to win a playoff game at. We've seen that historically over the years. So I don't, and again, especially for a rookie quarterback, I don't think this is going to be the toughest test, I think, for this Patriots team. We could say, oh, well, again, the way they're playing against Jarrett Stidham, but I mean, the way C.J. Stroud played last week, he might as well have been playing against backup quarterback, for being honest. Right?
Exactly.
And so I don't, and that's a game that they could have been in. So I don't think that Denver is too panicked, honestly, about the quarterback position, because we're talking about Sean Payton, which, like you mentioned, if there's any coach in the NFL that I want in this situation, I think it's Sean Payton. We're talking about someone with experience, someone that knows quarterbacks, and again, someone that knows situational playoff football and what you got to do to win games. And again, he's at home and he has a hell of a defense. Vance Joseph has done a tremendous job. He probably hasn't gotten enough looks. I think this offseason, again, it's kind of it's a numbers game. He definitely got interviews, but there's certain jobs like he's not going to go to Arizona, right? Some of these places, but
right.
But yeah, no, I think that this is a situation that I think New England is definitely, they're sort of in pole position. They're sort of, this is their game to lose, but they've got to play well. This is not a game where I think they could play a C game and win. In my opinion.
Who you got in this one? Who you picking?
I'm going with New England.
Okay.
And as much as I say that they can't play a C game and win, I don't think they will. I think we'll see a good version. I think we'll probably see the best version of this New England Patriots team that we've seen all playoffs.
Okay.
Just from them playing a clean 40 minutes of football. But to me, again, we're talking about a Denver team that is just played really great football, but without Bo Nix, you could argue things go a certain way in that last game. They don't win that game anyway, right?
Right.
And I think that this New England team is better than that Buffalo team, if I'm being honest. So I go New England. I go New England. I'll say 20 to 17. I think.
Okay. Okay, and that would be a New England. That'd be a push because I think New England's favored by 3 in this one, if I remember correctly.
Well, that's not good. I gotta go something else.
Can anyone amend your pick to help the people out there?
Yeah, I know.
But no, I think we have similar game again, having 23-17 somewhere in that lane. I think it's a good game. I'm curious how Josh McDaniels coaches this game. Does he try to say, hey, listen, like we maybe, I think they're trying to let Drake May cook, and he was fumbling the ball, and I think he wasn't ready because it's playoff football. He's adjusting. Do they, now that he has more experience, stay with that aggressive side? They were very aggressive in the first drive against the Texans. They scored a touchdown, and then it was like all these issues after that. Do they stay aggressive on the road, or does he try to become more conservative? I get the impression they're going to play this more conservative than they have, knowing that it's a backup quarterback on the other side and knowing it's Denver. And that actually may help Denver in this game. So I'm very fascinated about this one. I'm very fascinated what you think about this LA Rams versus Seattle Seahawks. It's a game that I talked about. I can't wait for. These two teams played classics, I think, in the first 2 games they played this year. The Seahawks almost stealing a game in LA despite 4 picks from Darnold. The Seahawks then stealing a game at home after some crazy hijinks on a 2-point conversion, and they come back in the fourth quarter and them winning a game in overtime. These, to me, have been the 2 best teams in the NFC. With Sam Darnold, who, I know you weren't there in Minnesota when he was there, but you're familiar with just like, what that program was like and the performances that he had there in the year after, you were there. And then he ran into that brick wall. First it was Detroit, but then the real brick wall of the playoffs where he just looked like it was Fright Night playing against Chris Shula and the Rams defense. And then you go into this year where you're once again playing against Chris Shula and the Rams defense. Now a different coach. So if you wanted to blame that on KOC and the familiarity of KOC and Sean McVay, you can't say that for a brand new head coach in Mike McDaniel and Clint Kubiak. And yet it essentially took Sam Darnold 7 quarters of football to do anything of note against the Rams offense without turning the ball over left and right. It wasn't until the fourth quarter and overtime where he finally started to figure them out a little bit. Are you expecting the Sam Darnold we saw in last year's playoffs against the Rams and most of this season, or are you expecting to see more of the guy we saw in the fourth quarter and overtime against the Rams in Seattle just a couple weeks ago?
Man, I'll be honest. I think Darnold's locked in, man. I don't think that the Darnold production at this point is a fluke. I don't think it can be attributed solely to coaching or solely to scheme and situation. I don't think this is a system guy, and like I think he's I think he's a very good quarterback. Now, how good that is, I don't know. I mean, I think this is something akin to what Jared Goff is in Detroit, where I guess maybe you can attribute some of it to system and coaching, and situation, but I guess you could do that for every quarterback in the league to some extent. But
Right.
I think I think he plays one of his best games. I mean, I think he has to. I don't. Again, this is a situation where the Rams are gonna give them their best punch. This is, like you said, a team that he's got experience playing against. It hasn't always gone well, but that I think that Thursday night football game we saw about a month ago kind of may open the floodgates to some things that have worked for Seattle. Losing Charbonnet is not good.
That's a big loss.
Yeah, I mean, that their run game, having the two-headed monster that they've had, it's been very much predicated on having both of them. And so losing Charbonnet is not great, but I mean, Clint Kubiak deserves a lot of credit for how efficient their offense has been all season. But obviously Mike McDonald also deserves a lot of credit for the defense that they've put together. And I think the chess match on that side of the ball between McVay and Mike LaFleur and Mike McDonald is going to be fascinating. Because we saw Puka Nacua, just run wild. That was like the Randy Moss Thanksgiving game for Puka Nacua last time those two teams played. So they're gonna have to figure out something different this go around. But if they can, which again they've got, they've had time to prepare for a what if we have to see these guys again.
Yeah.
They've had time this week to figure out, look at the film. That's what's so unique when you have these divisional opponents facing each other in a game like this is you have two games that you can go off of and say what did we do wrong, and I think which team makes the adjustments will probably be the one that wins it.
Yeah, and Mike LaFleur, also a guy I mentioned earlier how the Cardinal job is seen as one of the least favorable jobs. Mike LaFleur apparently also a finalist for the Arizona Cardinals job. So interesting there. Former, not just Rams OC obviously right now, but also former Jets OC. So we got some experience there.
I mean, he was tar and feathered in New York.
Yeah.
I mean, it was bad. And you could argue, for good reason or whatnot. Maybe it was just.
And now I tell you what, a lot of fans look at him and say, man, we gave him a raw deal because then Nate Hackett came in here and it was 100 times worse with him coaching Zach Wilson. And then he couldn't even coach Aaron Rodgers when Aaron Rodgers came back. And we're like, man, we gave he was coaching a rookie Zach Wilson, a second-year Zach Wilson who had no damn clue what the hell was going on. And the Jets actually had some success running the football. They were able to do some things offensively. And since they've been their offense has been doo-doo, essentially. So Mike LaFleur now getting to LA is just rehab his entire image in a way that I think is maybe not surprising because that's what happens when you lead the Jets. But again, a lot of Jets fans looking at that saying maybe we're all wrong about Mike LaFleur. On that matchup of the Rams offense versus Seahawks defense, and I think you're right that it is going to be a nice one to follow because I said this earlier when I did my first show today, was what I've seen from Sean McVay and what I've seen from the Rams this year, and was why I think, to be honest, last week's game was such a classic against the Bears because that was a classic styles make fights. You have a offensive team who can get up on you early, who is explosive, but who takes their foot off the gas and allows you to get back in games. Then you had a Bears team who always starts slow, but is physical and can take the ball away and never quits and has a ice cold killer in the fourth quarter with a team that will give it up in the fourth quarter. So I was like, this could be a style makes fights deal where the Rams get off to a good start, but then the Bears just hang around long enough and then Caleb Williams holds some magic, and lo and behold, that's essentially what happened. I bring that up because that is, I feel like, is one of the things that Sean McDermott I keep calling him Sean McVay because I talk about McDermott so much. Sean McVay gets so much talk about how much he's a progressive offensive mind and he's one of the best offensive coaches and the Rams have one of the best offenses. But I don't think we talk enough about how conservative he is and how much he does take his foot off the gas as a coach and how he doesn't like going at 4 on 4th down. And they will kind of take the air out of the ball sometimes when they have a lead. Is there concern that that may happen again for you? Like, I think that he's kind of like a X factor, and not necessarily in the way that we all just assume, well, because he's a great coach. I actually kind of wonder, like, Sean McVay may have to go a little bit off the reservation. If you're right that Darnold may have figured out that defense a little bit, and they may be able to move the ball against a Rams defense that has been a little hit or miss down the stretch, then that means I don't think that Sean McVay can say, okay, let's spam Puka Nacua for the first 2 drives and then just forget he exists until the 4th quarter, which is what we've seen him do the last few games. I'm a little worried about that aspect for the Rams. How do you feel about that matchup between him and Mike McDaniel on that side of the ball? Mike McDonald, sorry, that side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right about McVay's tendency to, like you said, take the foot off the gas a little bit. I think sometimes there's an over reliance on the system. Their whole system is predicated on being able to establish the run and then play off of that and play action. And but at the same time, like you said, when you have guys like Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams on the outside, sometimes you want to take more advantage of that, not just on 3rd down, but in early downs as well. And I think, again, we saw last time these two teams played, them and sometimes out of necessity, feeding Puka Nacua a lot more than
I lost Kendall there for another second here. Hopefully he'll be back soon. Oh, we lost him completely there. Oh, so Kendall's gone. Hopefully we'll get him back soon. He was making a good point there as he just called me back just now. Let's see if we can get him back here. Let's see. All right, yeah, you're back, Kendall. What's up? Wait, sorry, say that again?
Yes. No, sorry. Yeah, no, I mean, I think we're going to see the Rams, try to establish Puka Nacua early. This is a game that I don't think they can play with their food the same way they did. I think kind of both the first 2 weeks of the playoffs of the postseason. And I think this is going to be a high scoring game. I think that both offenses have sort of, I'm not gonna say they figured out the defenses, but I think they have. I think they're at this point they're going to be a little more comfortable. We've had 2 weeks now of playoff film. These teams have seen each other twice during the season already. I think this is not going to be I think this is going to be a game where both teams kind of put up some points.
Yeah, I had the same thing. I had a high scoring game in this one. I'm leaning Rams. I just feel like I think it's gonna be a close game. I think it's gonna come down to the wire. So I think that's gonna mean it's gonna be who has the ball last in their hands or who makes the last play in the last with the ball in their hands between Darnold and Matthew Stafford. And I think I'm taking Matthew Stafford, and I might have lost kind of one more time there. Hopefully these internet issues we're dealing with, I'm okay. I don't think we've lost internet connection from my end. But I've said that I don't think we're gonna see. I don't think we're going to see Matthew Stafford fall short in that moment. I would expect Matthew Stafford to play at an extremely high level in that moment. So that's why I'm picking the Rams. Sam Darnold, I think he will play much better. Like I said, I think I agree with Kendall, we're going to see an offensive explosion potentially in this game. Explosion may be harsh, but I think we're going to see a good offensive game. Will we end up seeing Sam Darnold with the ball in his hands late, driving, not make that critical mistake, not make that error? That just has been the story of his career for so much of it. So I would be surprised that if it does come down to last 2-3 minutes of the game, both the quarterbacks get the balls in their hands, who's going to make the play? Last week, Caleb Williams was able to get them to overtime, but then of course made the critical interception in overtime. Rams can take the ball away, just like the Seahawks can. The Rams can take the ball away. So that's why I'm leaning Seahawks, Rams, in that regard. I'm curious what Kendall's leaning. I'm just gonna text him real quick, see if he can get back on. But I'm looking at a Seahawks team and that has had a great season. The Charbonnet injury, which we didn't mention earlier, was definitely one that was completely maybe being overlooked, but is definitely a killer for them. They definitely need Charbonnet to be there and to be a factor for them this year. He's been great all season. So Charbonnet is definitely going to be a big factor in this one. Can they keep Kenneth Walker healthy? Does Kenneth Walker play with a little more rhythm because he's not getting pulled out as much? Is going to be interesting. So yeah, we're still having a little trouble with Kendall. So that's a little unfortunate. I'm hoping we can get him back. I'm not sure what's going on. On my end, everything looks good on my end. And everything was good for a while until that last bit. So I'll see if we can get Kendall on. Hopefully we can get him back soon and we can get his pick on the Championship Sunday preview. Again, this is New Generation. This is New Generation's 40 Days, 40 Nights. Let's see if we can get Kendall on one more time as he tries to lock back in. Let's see if we got him. As I put him up, and now he's having trouble. I don't see a video. Can I put him down real quick? Let me see him turn to the green room for a second. Let's see if we can get his whole situation figured out. Oh, there he is. All right. No, now I can get him out of the green room. All right. This is all crazy. This is the nature of the beast when it comes to doing the live stream. Kendall, you there? Kendall, you hear me? I don't know if you're muted, Kendall, but we do see you. Kendall, are you there? It looks like he's there. I assigned him back, so he's not in the green room. So he's here. He's guest one. I put him up. Kendall, are you hearing me? And now he looks frozen again. Yeah, it's not looking good for my boy. This is unfortunate. We may not be able to get Kendall. He's going to try one more time here. So it looks like he's dealing with some internet issues. So I'll try this one more time with Kendall. See if we can get him on here. Let's see. All right. He's in the green room. All right, let's see if we can bring him back up one more time here. Let's cross our fingers we don't have another technical issue. Kendall, you're here. It looks like you're muted, if you are there. It looks like you muted yourself. Are you able to unmute yourself in Ecamm? It says guest has muted himself. Oh, now I muted guest. Can I unmute guest? We see you, but we don't hear you. Is there any way you can unmute yourself? I see that you're muted. Nope, nothing. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Are you muted? No, it looks like he's gonna bounce. I don't think this is gonna happen. Oh, but maybe no. Yeah, we see you. Yeah, do you hear us? Do you hear us, Kendall? Yeah, someone in the comment section flipped the mic down on the headset. That's not the problem. His mic is in front of him. But I have to think, Kendall, if you can hear me, that you're muted. That your mic is actually muted. So are you able on Ecamm or in whatever your system is to unmute your mic? Yeah, I think we might have lost my guy. I'm going to put him down back into the green room so he can maybe figure that out. Why he figures that out. Because he's there. Now I do see him, but we're not hearing him. But yeah, we're having some issues with the interview saga part of this is not working as well. So that sucks. Because we was having a good conversation, and Kendall, of course, is the man, and it's unfortunate we're not able to lock this in for the rest of this time. But shout out to Kendall, man. He always does great stuff, and he always has great insight. I would love to see if maybe he can text me his pick so you guys can get his pick on this game between the Seahawks and the Rams. I know he's texting me right now to see what's going on. My interview section, since this is live stream and this is, this is going to be very different than listening to a regular radio show. So I'm just going by what I see. I see here, my interview side says that you're offline. I don't know why it would say that because I'm still live, still streaming, still up here. Everything still seems to be going good on my end. So I don't know why that's a problem in the interview side of this, but that is what I see. It says my interview thing is offline. Again, I have no idea why that's the case. He says Ecamm is struggling right now. So I think that's probably going to be, we'll probably leave that for Kendall for today. So shout out to my guy, but still a fun interview. Fortunately, we had some technical difficulties come up at the very end. So we're now 2 for 4 when it comes to interviews via this Ecamm system that I use. So we had Ray Jarvis who came on, and he was pretty much money. We had no issues in terms of technical problems. We had my guy Manny Rodriguez, who was the associate producer with me on the Maggie and Perloff show. He came on. There were tons of issues. Nothing went right. So then that was a problem. And then we had Kendall last week. It went totally fine. This week it started fine, and then random issues with the connection, and then now obviously no connection. So that's a little bit unfortunate. So we'll see Kendall next week, and hopefully we'll be able to get those situations ironed out. Oh, he's trying to call me one more time. I'm gonna give it one more go. And we'll see if maybe this one will finally go through. I still don't know if it's on my end or his end. So he's waiting in the green room. So let's put him up and let's see what's gonna happen here. No idea how this is gonna go down. So let's see. All right, so I'm putting Kendall back up. All right, Kendall, you got me now. We hear you. Do you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. Yeah, real quickly, Kendall, can you give us a pick? Who you picking in this game?
Yeah, I'm going with the. Sorry, I totally forgot which game I was picking. I was like,
yeah, we on Seahawks Rams. Seahawks Rams.
I'm going with the Seahawks. Yeah, I'm going with the Seahawks. I mean, I think the Seahawks. Like I said, I think Darnold's going to play the best game. Or at least he seemed locked in. It might be the best game he's played against his Rams team so far. So I'm going with Seattle. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be high scoring. The Rams have had some classic playoff games so far, and I think this will be another one.
I want to get your thoughts on some other stuff outside of the world of sports. We got Kendall Stewart here for as long as we got him. Let's hope we got some of these kinks ironed out when it comes to the technical aspects. But I wanted to ask you quickly about, did you see the new stuff going on with the Lobo images that came out? DC had a teaser that came out with Lobo. I don't know if I still got Kendall because he looks very frozen right now, so I'm assuming that I don't have him because he has the same look on his face that he had just 2 minutes ago. So I don't know if we do have Kendall. Yeah, so he just texted me that I think he's done. So I'm gonna can Kendall here. Shout out to my guy though. Fun stuff from him. Always fun stuff. Unfortunate apologies for the technical difficulties on Kendall's stream here. Not sure why we weren't able to lock in. Hopefully we'll be able to test this stuff out and we'll have some problems next week. But I can actually quickly talk about the Lobo images. So we'll get back to some sports stuff as well. There's a couple more things I wanted to talk about, especially considering Tom Brady and the CFP. Well, actually, let me get to that stuff now, and I'll maybe get to the other stuff a little bit later about the DC stuff. I wanted to talk to Kendall about that. I wanted to talk about the college football playoff real quick. So the CFP formatting will remain the same this upcoming season. There will be a 12-team field this year for 2026. That means you will not have the expansion we were talking about where there was support for a 16-team system that was led by the SEC. There was also from the Big Ten saying that we don't want a 16-team system, but we'll take it if you expand to 24 teams. And that had been the fight that had been going on for the entirety of this past year. They had till this deadline today to come to an agreement to figure out what the new format was going to be for next year. Otherwise, they're going to stay with the same, except that Notre Dame's guaranteed a spot in the playoff if they finish in the top 12. And that is what we're going with. We're going to be going with a spot in the top 12 with Notre Dame being guaranteed a spot if they fit in, but it's still going to be 12 teams. Same formatting where it's going to be straight seeding. No more, you're a conference champion, you automatically get boosted up to a certain spot. Or some of the issues you had in year one where it wasn't natural seeding. Now it'll be straight seeding as it's been, but it'll still be 12 teams that qualify. Same rules as well regarding the group of 5 teams that I think was probably the one thing that is unfortunate about this is the fact that they couldn't figure that out, and we're going to have another year where we're going to have to be concerned about whether or not we're going to see James Madison facing Oregon in a playoff game or seeing Tulane facing Ole Miss in a rematch in a playoff game. That is the downside, I think, of this, that they weren't able to figure that out, because that was a real letdown. At the end of the day, we understand that, group of 5 teams should have something to play for, and I think there's no reason why we can't allow them an opportunity to potentially qualify for the field if they are indeed worthy. I don't think saying that a team that's ranked 24 or a team that's ranked 20th should be allowed to jump up into the top 12 of a playoff where you're trying to find the best 12 teams to make the best college football playoff because we want to give a participation trophy to the group of 5. That to me is utterly ridiculous, and it's a shame that we couldn't get an agreement to figure out how to fix that aspect, so we're going to be stuck with that for another year. What I will say is I am someone that's been very anti-expansion. I started with saying 16 would be okay, and I'm still okay if they want to expand to 16. But I really felt like, as we've seen now 2 years in a row, the 12 team really allows you an opportunity to really kind of weed out the kind of mid teams and weed out the teams that have had issues. And it really kind of demands a level of exclusivity that requires you having great seasons. We're not putting in crappy teams. We're not putting in teams that maybe could win a game here or there. You saw Ohio State last year, even with 2 losses, coming in as an 8th seed, they win the national championship. Last year, Miami, they had 2 losses, or this year rather, Miami 2 losses. They come in as a 10th seed, last at-large team to get in, but they get to the national championship. But it shows you that because of that narrow view, those teams, the teams probably around the top 10 or so, those are in theory really the best teams, and those are the teams that we want to see playing. And if you want to maybe, again, add 1 or 2 more by removing some of the group of 5 teams, or at the very least making them have to qualify and earn it, not just get jumped up into the top 12, that's one thing. I think if you start adding going to 16, you water this thing down. Now we're arguing about, is the 6th best SEC team good enough to make the college football playoff, or is the 4th best ACC team? Like, I don't want to have those conversations. I don't think they're necessary. I think this is a thing that should be special. I think that it's great that it is special, and it's just I don't think that expanding to 16 is necessary. I can live with 16 because there's only 4 more teams. That's okay. That's fine. If this year that would have been Texas, that would have been that would have been Vanderbilt. Some good teams that may have been able to win a game or 2. So it wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world. I do, and I never thought I'd say this, I do support the SEC in standing pat and saying we're not going to 24. It's unnecessary, and they're doing it purely because, again, the Big Ten has this agreement where they want to share the money with everybody, so they want as many teams as possible that can get in, and they know that they're a league right now that in a 12-team college football playoff, given the history now, we have the short history, is they're probably going to be capped at about 3 teams. They're not going to be they're not a deep enough conference where you're going to be talking about 4 or 5 or 6 teams getting into the college football playoff the way the SEC has, and they don't like that. So they're saying, let's get more teams in there so we can get more bread and we can spread this money around a little more. But I don't care about the Big Ten feeling like they're getting left out, even though they're still getting 3 teams a year. I mean, the ACC got 1, they barely got in. The Big 12 got 1, and that was the conference champion. Like, there are other conferences who aren't getting any kind of respect. So because the Big Ten wants more bread and they want to spread around the wealth, so we got to have 24 teams playing in the playoff for what? I don't need to see Iowa. I don't need to see Illinois. I don't need to see some of these teams that I saw play all year, and they had their opportunities at the end of the day to show that they were playoff teams, and they failed. They lost to Ohio State. They lost to Oregon. They lost to Indiana. They win some of those games, then those teams have an opportunity. I don't need that opportunity just be handed to them by saying, let's put 24 teams in a tournament. Like, to me, like, the NCAA tournament works in terms of it being a field of 68 because you're getting to see the Cinderella teams against the Goliaths. And you get to these great moments where you see these Cinderella teams rise up and find a way to get upsets. We don't care about the 5th best team in the Big Ten that's a 7th seed and saying, well, we're doing this 68 team or 68 team bracket because we want to make sure that the 7th Big Ten team gets in. We think that it's imperative that they make the tournament. We don't care about that. We care about it for one day when we argue about who was on the bubble, and then we move on from those guys immediately. We care about the Cinderellas and the big dogs. That's it. In college football, as we are seeing with what happened to James Madison and what happened with Tulane, is the Cinderellas just don't have the same kind of staying power in a college football tournament where they have to face like Alabama and Texas and some of these top schools. They don't have the same kind of staying power. You're not going to have those same kind of moments, and you end up just putting on bad TV products where we're watching guys that should not be on the field against the Oregons and the Ole Misses of the world getting absolutely blown out and destroyed in weekends that should be a celebration of college football. Instead, we're looking around being like, this is supposed to be the best college football has to offer, and I'm watching James Madison on the weekend. So, that's a tough aspect, again, of the fact that they weren't able to change this. But it's also a reason why I also don't think that I need 24 teams, because that means that those teams are getting in again. Those teams are definitely getting in. Now, maybe they don't have as hard a matchup if there's more teams in theory, but those teams are also losing to Texas and they're losing to Vanderbilt as well. Like, they're not beating those top teams, even the teams that barely made the cut or the teams that that maybe would have missed the 12-team playoff. But 24 teams is ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. It has nothing to do with the actual fans. I think if you polled college football fans that what do they want in terms of changes to the system, you may say, maybe they'll say they want 16 teams, but you're not going to have anyone saying we want to see 24 teams. I mean, let me see if I can find the Final Football college football ranking to see who was the 24th team in college football this year. I think ironically it actually might have been James Madison, which again, we had to see them anyway, and it was bad. I don't want to relive that. But let me see CFP final rankings here, and let's see if I can figure out who was the last team ranked here, if I can find from the thing. So here's the official ranking, college football playoff. As I slowly get through this, I'm wondering if it was my computer obviously is working really hard to put on this live stream. I'm hoping that wasn't the reason why Kendall had the issue we had in terms of connecting, because it seemed like everything was fine. All right, so I'm at the thing now. All right, so right now, so obviously Indiana was number 1. If you go down to 24, we would have been James Madison. So if we would have had a 2014 field, that means we would have had to see Iowa, Georgia Tech, Houston, Tulane, who we saw unfortunately, Virginia, Michigan, Arizona, South Carolina. Well, Southern California, USC. They would have been the 16th team. So USC would have been the last team in a 16-team field. Which, okay, you want to throw USC in there, fine, whatever. Like you're not going to destroy the sanctity of the sport by expanding the 16. Do I think that USC showed that they should have been a playoff team, that they should compete for a national championship? No, but okay, whatever. Utah was 15, they were okay. Vanderbilt again was 14, Texas was 13. Those teams were pretty good. All right, you want to go to 16? Fine. I'm going to 24, and now I got to put in Houston and Georgia Tech and Iowa. I mean, come on, what are we doing? Those aren't championship teams. I think what makes the college football thing special, the playoff special so far, is that it is such an exclusive thing to get into. And I think as a fan, now that I've both been on the outside and now on the inside looking in, when you are one of those fan bases, the few fan bases that are getting ready for playoff games and you're going crazy and you're excited and you're thinking about these matchups, it's cool. And it just makes it a lot different if it's 24 teams that get it. It's not nearly as important. And I think the most important thing about college football and what makes college football so special as well is the do or die nature of the regular season, which people thought was going to be gone if you expanded to 12. And obviously we had a 14 playoff before. I don't think that's the case. I mean, when Miami lost that game to SMU, everybody buried them and it seemed like their season was over. Now they overcame that, but those games felt do or die. Ask Texas fans after losing that first game in Ohio State, if that didn't feel like a do or die game at this point. Ask Notre Dame fans about those first 2 games of the season, losing to A&M and Miami, if those games didn't feel do or die. Like, these games feel like if they don't win, like your season is in peril. And I think that is a great thing about college football that we should not lose. You're going to lose it if you add 24 teams. It's just there are teams that are going to be able to lose 3-4 games in the season and still get into the tournament. And again, I don't think that's what college fans, football fans want. I know that's not what I want. So I'm out. I don't want to see a college football 24 team. That means I got to deal with this stupid group of 5 situation for another year. I'll do that before I deal with a 24 team system. Good on the SEC for holding firm. It sucks that we couldn't get a reasonable change to the system, but I'm still happy that we do have a 12 team field, and I'm happy that we don't have a 24 team field coming down the line, which would have been the case. The Big Ten was basically saying, we'll give you your 16 if you guarantee in 3 years it expands to 24, which is just utterly ridiculous. And then the other aspect too, is which we don't talk about, is like, Miami just played 16 games. Indiana just played 16 games. Like, that's a lot of wear and tear for athletes too, who are kids. Do I want multiple teams now, more teams playing these extra games? I don't think that's necessary, man. I really don't. Let's also get to some news talking about the college football playoff. Let's talk about the team that won. As much as that pains me to say, the Indiana Hoosiers did won, and Tom Brady was there live and in person. I said the Indiana Hoosiers did won. They did win, EJ. The Indiana Hoosiers did win that game, and Tom Brady was in person. He actually showed up, and he watched Fernando Mendoza up close and personal, and he gave his thoughts on the young man. He was standing there on the sideline for the game. He was in the suite. He said that he lived just 30 minutes away, so it was an easy drive for him, and his kid wanted to go to the game. I'm sure that's a reasonable thing to say, but of course, the Raiders, where he is a part owner of the team and has football personnel say on the team, are drafting number 1, and Fernando Mendoza is expected to be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. So this was Tom Brady getting also his first-hand look for the first time at the guy that could be leading the show for the Raiders at quarterback next year. So what do you think about him?
and got to be on the field in the pregame and have just observed. And I haven't been to a college football game in so long. I haven't never been to a national championship game, but just to see kind of the environment, the atmosphere, did it feel too big for anybody? And he's played tremendous, all season, 16-0, leading his team. And again, he's another guy that, when you hear him speak, I always kind of judge quarterbacks. I go, how would I have answered that? And he's just a very mature young man, and he's got a bright future.
High praise. He was very impressed. Said he was tremendous, and he's got a bright future. And Tom Brady, it could be a big impact on that future because, again, they have the #1 overall pick, and the Raiders desperately need a franchise quarterback. So Tom Brady saying that he was impressed by Fernando Mendoza. He also said this about when it comes to the development of not just Mendoza, but other young players who will be going from that national championship game to now the NFL.
Everybody coming into the league, there's still so much room for development. Nobody's a finished product. I don't care whether you're won the Heisman or you're the 199th pick in the draft. It's what do you do when you get there? How important is this to you? Are you obsessed with your job? Are you obsessed with being the best you can be? These young men, whether it's Fernando or a lot of other players that were on the field the other night, they have a great opportunity to do something in their life, to enhance their family's life, to go impact a community in a positive way by playing great football and bringing joy to the fan base. And that's a job you take very seriously. So all these young prospects, I hope they go to environments that embrace them completely, that can help them develop into the best player they can be.
And that is going to be the big question about Fernando Mendoza going to the Las Vegas Raiders, because the Las Vegas Raiders have been one of the worst run organizations in the NFL. And when Tom Brady talks about he hopes these young players, which he's including Fernando Mendoza in those comments, go to an environment that allows them to grow as a player, that is the Las Vegas Raiders in this case for Fernando Mendoza, most likely, unless they're going to swing some trade that nobody foresees where they're going to give up on that pick and allow someone else to take that pick, the Jets or somebody else, I don't know. That's going to be the Las Vegas Raiders, and we're still trying to figure out what their coaching situation is going to be. We're still trying to figure out what the future holds for a lot of guys on that team. Is Max Crosby going to be on that team this upcoming year? There's still a lot of questions to be answered about the Las Vegas Raiders, so I am very curious and very interested in what Tom Brady thinks about Mendoza. The fact that he was willing to speak so highly of him tells me that this guy is going to be a Las Vegas Raider. And, Mendoza, I think, is with every game he played, I think he kind of gained more fans and gained more believers that this guy legit is a #1 caliber quarterback. He is very accurate. He's tough. He's willing to put it on the line for his team. And those are feats. Now, I think in the NFL, he's going to be a true pocket guy. I don't think he's going to be able to kill teams with his running, though. The run he made in the national championship game is going to be his signature moment as a college football player and his Heisman moment that happened well after him winning the Heisman. But he's going to be a pocket guy. But I think that there's reason to believe that he could be a very good quarterback in this league. Can the Las Vegas Raiders put together the team around him that he can thrive, that Tom Brady is talking about? Tom Brady has mentioned a ton about how he feels like the development of quarterbacks right now in the NFL currently is broken. He thinks there are too many quarterbacks that start coming out of year one that shouldn't. He thinks that the dumbing down the college football game when it comes to a coaching standpoint has also hurt a lot of these players' developments. He's made that extremely clear when talking about some of the issues that he's had with the league and how they've handled players. So here now, Tom Brady, who's going to have to maybe put his money where his mouth is, he's going to have the opportunity to be very instrumental into this young man's experience being developed at the NFL level. Was Tom Brady right? Was he right to say that the NFL doesn't know how to develop quarterbacks and they're doing a disservice to these young men, which is the words that he has used? We're going to find out, because now you're going to get the opportunity to run the show, and make no mistake about it, Tom Brady does run the show with the Las Vegas Raiders. You're going to have the opportunity to run the show to help this young man who most NFL scouts believe can be a franchise quarterback, and we'll see if he's right. We're about to learn a lot about, kind of maybe like a war of ideas when it comes to quarterback development in the NFL, because Tom Brady has been very vocal about that. We didn't think that there was any, chance that he would be running an NFL team that would have the #1 pick in the draft, but now here we are, and it's going to be very interesting to follow. I cannot wait to see what happens with Tom Brady and Fernando Mendoza. This is going to be really his first true mentee. I know like Shedeur Sanders was his mentee, and I know he's had a relationship with Shedeur Sanders, but obviously he didn't draft Shedeur Sanders. In New England, they never really developed a true heir apparent. At one point, Jimmy Garoppolo was kind of supposed to be that guy, but Brady didn't seem all that interested in him being his heir apparent, and he won a power struggle with Bill Belichick that allowed the Patriots to then decide to trade Jimmy Garoppolo because Tom Brady said, "I'm not going anywhere. I plan on playing for another 10 years." And guess what? He basically did. So I feel like it's just a fascinating kind of thing to look at where things stand with the Raiders and see this is going to be his first opportunity to actually develop a quarterback. Who is he going to put as a coach? What is he going to be trying to teach Fernando Mendoza that he really has not been able to impart that kind of wisdom onto any other young player, because he hasn't been around any other young player like that who they developed and who they are hoping to be the next great quarterback. The Patriots were not looking for the next great quarterback after Tom Brady got Jimmy Garoppolo out of there. It was just the Tom Brady show until he retired, and I think Bill Belichick couldn't stand that. And Tom Brady has been very vocal about what it takes to be a great quarterback. He said a ton in this interview as well about some of the things that that was important to him and how it was important to go to New England, a place that was all about football, a place that was focused on player development. He has a Tom Brady way, a Patriot way that he wants to bring, I believe, to Las Vegas. Does it work outside of New England? Does it work outside of Tom Brady? We saw Tom Brady win a championship somewhere else, so we know he can apply that to some other place in terms of as a player. But we didn't see Bill Belichick apply that as a coach after Brady left. He also couldn't apply that to the college game because he hasn't able to win a lot in North Carolina. And Tom Brady, in his first year of running a team, was not able to apply that to a Las Vegas Raider team that was hopeless. So this is going to be, I think, a very fun, fascinating storyline to follow. Tom Brady, the mentor, Fernando Mendoza, the mentee. Fun things to discuss for next year, assuming that they do continue on with Mendoza being the pick. So I said I want to talk about this earlier. I do want to bring this up. So earlier today, DC revealed a new teaser for Supergirl. I use new in quote-unquote quotation marks because there really wasn't a lot of new material or new teaser in it. A lot of the same footage we saw from the first one. But what was new about this teaser was they actually had different shots of Jason Mamoa, who's going to be playing Lobo. Lobo is an anti-hero, intergalactic bounty hunter who is extremely violent, can be vulgar, but is a lot of fun. He's a over-the-top character. In some ways, he's kind of like DC's Wolverine in many ways, in terms of just like this abrasive kind of like guy who will say it's like DC meets it's like Wolverine meets Deadpool, which is ironic, obviously, because we just saw a Deadpool Wolverine movie. In many ways, Lobo's kind of like a combination of both for the DC world. And James Gunn, when he was hired by DC, he had decided that he did not want to move forward with Jason Momoa as Aquaman, but he saw a vision of Jason Momoa being Lobo and thought he was a perfect fit. Momoa agreed. He signed on immediately to continue in the DCU world, this time obviously not as Aquaman, now as Lobo. So we got some new shots here. Let's take a look at him. I'll be honest. It looks pretty good. This looks pretty good. This will do. This will do. You got Lobo, classic white skin, the black eyes, the motorcycle, the cigar lit. This is gonna work. I think that I thought this was a great casting when they did it. His entry into this movie is going to be an interesting aspect to it because I'm curious again, given that this is a Supergirl movie and Jason Momoa is such a big star and a lot of it. And I'm not saying that they're not going to focus on Supergirl, but you do wonder if there's a chance that she may end up being a little overshadowed by someone who's such a big star and a character that so many fans have been waiting to see come to the big screen in a major way. Lobo has been in television before. If you've ever watched a show, Krypton, Lobo was in it. I will tell you, it's not all that great. Krypton's a pretty good show. The Lobo parts of it aren't the best parts of it in terms of just his look and how he's portrayed. It's not all that fun. They needed to get somebody that is as big and broad naturally as Jason Momoa, so he fits perfectly. He's already got the long hair, so I'm excited, man. I think that this is gonna end up looking really dope. him with the teeth. And then there's a short interaction in the trailer. Obviously, I won't play the trailer. I'm not trying to get copyright stricken, but there's a short interaction with them where, obviously Supergirl's like, oh crap, this guy again. Like, so I get the feeling that there's going to be a lot of fun interactions with Lobo in this movie. I definitely can't wait to see this film. Again, Supergirl comes out later this year. It is essentially, from what I could tell, it seems like it's going to be a very true to form adaptation of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, which is a comic book from Tom King. This movie was originally titled Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Then they changed it to just Supergirl. So the stuff I've seen from the trailers, I don't want to spoil anything, but just the stuff I've seen and the stories and the lines that are being said, it feels like they're going to basically try to take that comic book and bring it to the big screen. And we haven't quite really seen people try to do that yet. Like, just adapt a story almost ripped from the comics completely and do a live action feature film. We've seen animated movies do that kind of thing a ton. DC always does this kind of thing. We haven't seen them really do it from like a comic book, from comic book straight to the big screen, saying we're just gonna take that story and almost do it the same. Essentially, it's a great story. I'm almost done reading. I didn't finish it, but it is a great story, and but it is a unique story, and it is a different story, and it is the storytelling behind it. I'm fascinated to see if they're able to translate that to the big screen in a way that will still make it a good movie. Because sometimes good books don't make good movies, or sometimes it's just hard to make a good book into a great movie, and that's why you see Hollywood oftentimes take many liberties with books, and it drives book fans crazy. Whether you're a comic book fan, whether you're a novel fan, with very different novels, romance novels, drama, whatever you want. People always run and say, "Oh man, they didn't do it like the comic book, or they didn't do it like the regular book. They changed this and that," and people go ballistic. And part of that is because, yeah, sometimes they end up making worse decisions in terms of story ideas. But other times, it's Hollywood legitimately looking at a book and saying, okay, there's some things that just don't work or don't make sense or just seem silly on the big screen. And then there's also the aspect of, hey, you're going to a movie to at some point be enthralled in the story and be surprised. Like if you do the same thing that happened in the book one for one, then that kind of takes the element of surprise out of it. So maybe they like to do some twists. We saw that with Watchmen, right? We've seen that with other different kind of movies. So Lobo is in Supergirl. We got our newest look at him, a lot closer. I'm excited about this one. I'm excited to see what Lobo is going to end up doing. I'm excited to see how Supergirl is going to go. I really enjoyed Superman. It feels like this movie is going to be very much not like Superman. So I'm very interested in what the reaction is going to be. We already know there already seems to be a baked in. Ever since Wonder Woman 1, it seems like since then there's been like this baked in thing against a lot of female led superhero movies and television shows where just there are certain people that just will reject them on sight. I'm hoping that doesn't happen here, but I'm also not naive to where we are in the world. But even beyond that aspect, excluding those folks, this being so different than Superman and maybe what people would expect from Supergirl, because they see Supergirl and they think, oh, she's just going to be a female version of Kal-El, when she really isn't. So, and this version of her from this comic book is probably the furthest from being a version of Kal-El. So I'm wondering what the response is going to be. There are a lot of folks, again, I learned a ton watching the Superman discourse over the summer. Most people liked the movie. There are some people, of course, who didn't like the movie. But some of their reasoning I learned were from people who just did not know anything about Superman. People like, who is this girl? I'm like, you don't know he has a cousin that's a superhero? Who is this dog? You know, he's had a dog since like the 1940s. Like, so I think when people there may be some shock and a little bit of surprise to see kind of just where Kara is at this point in her life watching this movie. I'll be interested to see how people respond to that. So I do want to see Supergirl. I can't wait to see it as it comes out later this year. And last thing I want to talk about was what I think is also something that's going to be fun. I wish we could have got Kendall's thoughts on this because I know obviously he's great when it comes to Marvel and DC stuff. But Wonder Man comes out on January 27th. So next week we're going to have a new Marvel show out. I know we're all locked into Doomsday, and it seems like we're kind of crawling towards next year, which that's not coming out till December. We're also invested in Spider-Man, which that comes out a lot sooner. I think that's in May. So Spider-Man 4 is going to come out. That will be a very interesting movie because there are people that are cast as leads that we don't know who they're playing technically. Sadie Sink was cast as a female lead. Is she playing Jean Grey? Is she playing Mary Jane? Is she playing Gwen Stacy? All that's being kept very close to the vest. What is going on with this movie? Why is Hulk and Punisher in this movie? There are a lot of questions and not a lot of answers yet. So we're coming up on Super Bowl week soon, which makes me think we will probably have a trailer for this movie soon, which will also make that a fun aspect to this. But the critics are reviewing Wonder Man. People have gotten to take a look at it. And this is a movie that I think people, or rather a show, that I think people have kind of forgotten about or even don't even know is happening. Disney Marvel have not put, in my opinion, the full rocket ship of support behind this project. And we know there's been a shift with Bob Iger basically telling them that, hey, we need to de-emphasize TV shows and put better emphasis on movies, and we're going to do less of those movies to hype them up as bigger projects. So I don't know if that's part of the reason why some of these shows have not gotten the same kind of shine that they used to get when we were doing first the Loki show, the WandaVision show, like those first few seasons, or those first shows, Winter Soldier, Falcon and Winter Soldier. Those shows got a ton of press, a ton of promotion. They pushed those things like crazy. Seems like recently that hasn't been the case. Ironheart, which I thought was actually really good, kind of came and went. We saw what happened with She-Hulk, and we still have questions about if She-Hulk is still going to even be around. The Wakanda show also came and went. I actually haven't even watched that show yet. So this was kind of like the last one. Now, Daredevil had more press, but still not as much, I would say, as probably the earlier shows, part because there were so many changes in Daredevil. So I think a lot of people don't even know Wonder Man's happening next week. A lot of people also don't know who Wonder Man is. That's been a conversation I had to do with my fiance, who I keep saying, hey, want to watch Wonder Man with me? And she's like, who's that? I'm like, Wonder Man, he's an Avenger. And like, how many of these guys are there? You can't have a million Avengers. I'm like, well, he is an Avenger, and he's a character. And he's being played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen, who was in Watchmen, which she liked that, so that made her a little interested. I'm sure the guy's handsome and brolic and a man's man. So I think when I said that, she was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll watch. So, but nonetheless, the critic reviews so far have been really good. And I want to, assuming the rest of this computer will cooperate, I want to show you guys some of the response I'm seeing for Wonder Man. Here's one from CG Magazine that said, in many ways, Wonder Man feels like the Marvel show I've been begging for. They gave it a 9 out of 10 after seeing it. This is POC Culture. Said Wonder Man is one of the best things Marvel's ever done. It's hilarious, vulnerable, and heartfelt. Yahya Abdul-Mateen and Sir Ben Kingsley, who's of course playing the Trevor character. If you remember, first in the Iron Man 3 movie, you had Trevor, the Mandarin actor, who we learned was an actor named Trevor, and then that same character then reappeared in Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings. Trevor is back, and this is going to be in many ways a buddy show rather, between Simon Williams, played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen, and the character Trevor, who is an actor. Simon is a struggling actor. He's trying to get a role, and the story in the trailers that we've seen is that he goes for the role of Wonder Man, who was this superhero show that he grew up with in the 70s, and they're doing a reboot. And of course, Trevor having the acting background, for Marvel wanting to connect things to the world that they've already created, it does make sense to have him be a part of this story of Wonder Man, though it seems like he's going to have a pretty big role from some of the reactions we're seeing on social media. We also got Andrew Corpon, who says, I'm 5 episodes into Wonder Man, and it's a pleasant surprise, largely thanks due to the duo of Yahya Abdul-Mateen and Ben Kingsley. It's really light on the superhero aspects and heavier on the filmmaking process. Enjoyed what Jason Sponsol did. Full review on Monday. And then Rohan Patel says here, Wonder Man is fantastic, an introspective MCU journey unlike any we've experienced before, anchored by all-time romance between Simon Williams and Trevor Slattery. Of course, that's Yahya Ben Kingsley, who says are phenomenal. Hope to see more of both of soon rather than later. And oh man, I cannot. Let me make sure you can see the rest of that. And oh man, I cannot wait for Daniel Destin Creed's Spider-Man's Brand New Day. And that's a little bit of an interesting comment. Is there any reason to think that there's going to be a tie-in to that? because I don't know why that has anything to do. I mean, it's the next Marvel project, but it's also with Sony, so it's a weird thing there. But is there going to be something tied into this that would make that important to point out? I don't know. I have no idea. I'm actually very curious about that. As you can see my my wallpaper background there. But that's something I did not expect to hear about. You know, also Spider-Man, that this is going to be fun too. There, far as I'm concerned, there's no reason for that to have been ties from Wonder Man to Spider-Man, but it is the only Marvel Studios project before Spider-Man. So is there a post-credit scene? Again, is there a tie-in in the final episode? We'll see. But I'm excited now about this show. Again, this was one that I'll be honest, just because of it's one of those things where I think in many ways, like Marvel and any company, like you're going to feed the energy that we're going to give back to you. So to me, you've been treating Wonder Man like an afterthought. It's getting really late promotion. It's not being promoted the way your other movies and some of the earlier shows that you had on Disney Plus are being promoted. So if you're treating it as an afterthought, even though I'm a super Marvel fan and I watch everything Marvel does and I'm very invested in what they do, it's hard for me to then get super excited about something if you're not giving me the energy to be excited about it. Like, I kind of like went into watching Ironheart despite the fact that you guys didn't support it. And it was great. And I had a great time. And I was glad I watched it. But I feel like there's so many others who probably didn't give it a shot because you didn't give the energy off that it was going to be a show that you had to watch. So now seeing that there's all this positive reaction, it once again makes me wonder, like, is Marvel, is this strategy of saying we're de-emphasizing the shows, is it actually becoming, a detriment to them? Because I think they have some new characters that, like a Riri Williams and now maybe a Simon Williams, that could be really beneficial and useful to them because they were on series and shows that were really good. It's a question I'm going to continue to ask. We're going to talk about it, obviously, when we do New Generation Hero Talk. Hopefully we'll do that sometime this weekend. But the critics seem to like Wonder Man a lot. They seem to like Wonder Man a lot. So if you want to stay locked into what we're doing here on 40 Days and 40 Nights, you want to stay locked into what we do on Hero Talk, I'm sure I'll be talking about Wonder Man on both the live streams and on our Hero Talk podcast. So make sure you watch those episodes as well. But the critics right now liking Wonder Man. I saw it had a certified fresh score on Rotten Tomatoes as of right now. So Wonder Man coming out next week. You want to make sure you catch that if you're a big Marvel fan. But I think that's going to leave it there for today. Again, I want to thank you guys for rocking with me on night 10 of 40 Days and 40 Nights. Of course, like all of our shows, you can catch everything on YouTube, New Generation Media, where we're streaming live right now. The episodes stay up there, so you can watch back old episodes, or you can rewind and watch the earlier parts of this episode. Maybe fast forward through the last end of Kendall's interview where we had little technical issues. But otherwise, you can watch all of that. Again, streaming live, New Generation Media on YouTube. Make sure you also go on to X, EJ_Stewart. Make sure you follow me there, where we're also streaming live on X. Shout out to the folks watching us on X. And of course, we're streaming live on Instagram. Action EJ is where you'll find me on Instagram. So make sure you follow us all those other places. Of course, I'm on TikTok as well. Make sure you follow me there, Action EJ. And like I've said, as always, every episode gets podcasted. So if you want to listen to the show when you're on the go, or you're driving, or you're working out, whatever the case may be, you can't watch, totally fine. Listen to the podcast. 40 Days and 40 Nights can be found on the New Generation Podcast Network. That's where you'll search wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, wherever you're at. Just search New Generation Podcast Network, and you'll find every episode of 40 Days and 40 Nights, plus all of our other podcasts on the New Generation Media. So if you loved what you heard from Kendall today, and you want to hear more of him talk about other things like Star Wars and superheroes, go on to the podcast. He's the co-host of Imperial Broadcast, our Star Wars podcast, our superhero show, New Generation Hero Talk, that I host on as well. Those episodes are on there. My wrestling podcast with my friend Lucas Goldman, who's the WWE writer, is on there. So all the episodes, along with not just 40 Days and 40 Nights, are all on our podcast network, which you can find wherever you get your podcasts. Just search New Generation Podcast Network. All right, week 2 in the books. I want to thank my guy Kendall Stewart for coming on. He did a phenomenal job. Obviously, we had technical issues at the end, but before that, he was killing it, and I love talking to my guy. And we'll have more of him every Friday. I want to thank you guys for being rocking with me all week. It's been a fun week. Week 3 starts on Monday. Enjoy Championship Sunday. I'm going Rams. I'm going Patriots. Lock it in. It's your boy EJ Stewart. I'll see you guys on Monday. Take it easy. And I'm on The Fan, by the way. Check me out on The Fan. I'm hosting Sunday, 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. So if you can't wait till Monday, check me on The Fan, WFAN, 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. Love you guys. Take it easy. I'll see you later.